Right, once again, the idea is to pot the black in the same pocket. Another straightforward little shot. As you can see, the black's surrounded with the 3 reds. What happens is they hit the first red, it knocks the second red out of the way. It in turn knocks the 3rd red up the table. The black comes out of the little cluster, runs up the table, hits the triangle, jumps over the 5 reds and into the pot. Have you seen this one before? I've never seen it yet either. Right, black in the top pocket. Yeah. It's okay, I know what was wrong that time. I got the triangle upside down. Right, if I don't get it this time, I'll buy you all a drink out in the bar. Right, the money's on this time. Now, if any of you are going to have a go at that and you're setting it up, always make sure you've got the point of the triangle facing upwards. That just confirms that I'm Irish. Did you hear about the Irish fella that was teaching his dog to wee in the gutter and he fell off the roof and killed himself? What about the Irish girl that went home and told her mother she was pregnant, and her mother said, "Are you sure it's yours?" This is another way of potting the black. This time you snookered behind the 15 reds in the triangle. Got to get the white to jump over the 15 reds, down the table, jump through the triangle, on down the table, pot the black, swallow the cue, do a handstand. That's a cracker, isn't it? The way I play. That's one of Frank Carson's sayings, as I'm sure you all know. In fact, Frank was telling me the other week that just discovered a woman in Ireland with 5 legs, and her knickers fit her like a glove. Well, you've got to hand it to her, haven't you? I mean... Now, this is a very tricky one to get first time. We've got to send the red ball off 1, 2, 3 cushions. It should come up, knock the white out of the way, hit the triangle, and make it fall down onto the 15 reds. Anybody play billiards? Yeah? Billiards? You heard? Yeah. We'll just play a couple of little billiard shots for the billiard players. Right. Probably the ladies won't understand this one. Just a few little quick billiard shots. That's a cannon. I've never missed that one. You can imagine the black being your opponent's white at billiards. You want 3 to win the game. You could play a cannon off the red and knock your opponent's ball in. That's not very friendly at billiards. So the next time, you could always try and finish with an in off the red. heard a nice little story last week about Paddy, talking about the glasses, in fact. Paddy had a terrible accident on a building site. He had both his ears ripped off. And he went into the hospital, and he was in the hospital for 3 weeks. And he was coming back into work on the Monday. And the foreman went up to Mick, who was very friendly with Pat. He says, now, Pat's coming back into work on Monday. Whatever you do, don't mention his bloody ears. He said he's very, very sensitive about it, so don't mention his ears. So when Paddy got back into work, Mick went up and he said to him, how are you, Pat? And Pat says, I'm not too bad. And Mick says, I see your eyesight's improved. And Paddy says, well, what are you talking about? And Mick says, well, you're not wearing your glasses. Very useful shot to know this next one. You've just potted a red, and you've had a bit of bad luck, and the white comes up, and you snooker yourself on the black. You'd probably play one of the other colours. If you put plenty of chalk on the tip, nominate the black, and you're quick enough. It's just a matter of getting down and potting the black. So don't forget that one. Did you miss that? I'll show you up this side how it works, in fact. Now, if you watch it, in fact, I'll slow it down slightly for you this time. I'll give you an action replay. While I'm getting this one ready, I'll tell you one fine little Irish story. It's about Murphy, who was coming home one night along the canal bank, absolutely steamed out of his brains. He'd had about 16 pints of draft Drambuie. And there was a fella drowning in the canal, and Murphy, with all the drink in him, he was feeling fairly brave of himself, so he decided to jump in and rescue this fella. Anyway, he carried on home. By 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on his door. 2 policemen stood there, and one of them said to him, good evening, Mr. Murphy. Did you rescue a man from drowning in the canal earlier this evening? And he said, I did, Ossifer, but I don't want any medals for it. They said, well, God love you, Murphy. We didn't come to give you any medals. We just come to tell you that you shouldn't have bothered, because he hung himself instead. And Murphy says, no, he didn't. He says, I put him up there to dry. Do you want to hear one final one? Yeah. Well, it's about Paddy again, who was coming over to England for the very first time. And he was waiting at the airport in Belfast. And Mr. and Mrs. Dunn came up to him. And Mrs. Dunn said to him, when you get over to England, Paddy, if you see my son Neely, can you tell him to write to me? I haven't heard from him for 2 years. So Paddy says, whereabouts does he live? And Mrs. Dunn said, London WC1. Anyway, when Paddy got over to Heathrow, he was walking through the airport, and he happened to look over and he seen this door. And it said WC on it. So he went in through the door, and he went down along the doors till he come to number 1. And he knocked on the door and he said, excuse me, are you nearly done? And the fella says, yes I am, he says, but I can't find any paper. And Paddy says, well, that's no excuse for not writing to your mother. I don't know if I can manage this machine gun shot. I'll have a go. I haven't played this for a few weeks now. So a lot of practice goes into this shot. What happens, we've got to shoot the white into the corner pocket. Before the white gets there, we've got to send all the 7 reds in the same pocket. So strike the white first and it should drop in last. this last shot, I need a volunteer to help me out with this one. You couldn't find me a young lady, could you, Len?
Funny enough, we just happen to have one in the audience.
Right? One of the great American pool players showed this shot a couple of years ago, so... You may have seen this one on the television. Has he told you what's going to happen here? No. No? Just come up this side. Can you just come up this side of the table? All you've got to do, if you just sit on the table and throw your legs over the end. Just sit there and throw your legs. So is the nut on the top. Just move up a little bit better. Right. Right, well, what happens here? What happens here, we put all the lights out. Well, in fact, what happens, we get a block of chalk, place the white on the block of chalk on the bottom cushion, and could you just bite the chalk? Right, and the black's in a fairly tricky position as well. And I've got to pot the black out of, sorry, what was your first name? We've got to pot the black in the top pocket. Now, you'll have to be very quiet for this shot, because the last time I tried this, the young lady swallowed the black. Mind, you should have seen the shot I played to get the black out again. Right, black in the top pocket.
I'm just trying to think of another sport where that could possibly happen. What am